Music Podcast.
Oh, no, I've lost the bloody thing.
Oh my goodness.
I've already lost the plot. And in the style, yeah.
I haven't even got there. Where are we?
Hello, podcast world.
Hey.
We're back.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, Bits.
Yeah, sounds a bit.
Ah.
Oh, I'm moving this around.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Technical issues
I
already.
know. This bit, you've got to leave all this in, obviously, because
Well,
it's authentic, isn't it?
I also don't do editing.
You don't do the editing anymore.
No, because that.
No.
Yeah. I actually remember that from those early days when I
Really early
did
days.
editing and I thought,
Yeah.
this takes longer than actually doing the podcast.
Yes.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah,
like-
exactly.
Well, people do this for a living.
I know. It's mad.
Yeah. Anyway, hello. Back again. I'm back again with a big podcast.
It's a big one, this one, isn't it? Oh, yes.
Well, I think we've got a few big ones coming up, actually, now.
Yeah, we have.
Because we've suddenly people are releasing kind of records, and it's like, oh, there's them, and there's them, and there's... Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this podcast, we have the new album by Depeche Mode, Memento Mori. We have Baby Metal, the other one. Black Country New Road, live from Bush Hall. Lana Del Ray, did you know that there's a tunnel under Ocean Boulevard? No. The Whole Steady, The Price of Progress, and Boygenius, The Record. So we start, Peter.
Where we starting?
Well, who do you think we're starting with? We're starting with the 15th studio album by Depeche Mode,
Yeah.
who we last reviewed on podcast 5 2020.
Wow.
There's people going, what the fuck?
What?
Like, are they somehow delayed?
Oh, yeah.
But that's because we actually did one of our specials. We do it. I think it was the last one special we did. When we looked back on albums from when we were 20, you picked 3 albums, I picked 3 albums, and one of the ones you
was
picked
this. Yeah.
was Ultra.
Yes, I remember.
So actually, that was the last
Yeah.
time we did.
Yeah.
Before that, clearly, was
Yeah.
podcast 3 2017
Makes more
for
sense.
the last album, Spirit.
Yeah.
An album which we both thought was good. But then, as I've discussed with you in the pub recently,
Yeah.
not sure I really listened to it again after that.
Yeah. Going to come back to that point, I think. Yeah.
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 So, taking that in mind, 15th studio album, they're back. Unfortunately, off the back of
Yeah.
somebody dying.
Yeah.
How do we feel about the 15th album, Pete?
I've got a lot to say. So
I had to be in bed by
exactly, and we're already starting late, so I don't want to keep you up all night. So feel free to interject. That's what I'm trying to say. Get your notes up.
All right. They're up, Pete. Go.
So the 15th album, Depeche Mode. I mean, the context of this. I mean, fans will know this, but again, if you're coming to Depeche Mode for the first time ever, what? You're listening to this podcast.
No one's listening to the podcast.
This is nobody's really listening, are they? This album, the sort of beginning of it is in 2019. We then obviously there's a major virus that goes around in 2020 you may have heard of, and I think that really has an impact on the writing of this album. We'll come back to that in terms of themes, etc. Memento Mori, the Latin for remember we must die.
Yes.
So I think that those themes of mortality and endings are already present. We then of course get the very sudden death of Andrew Fletch, who is very much the third man of Depeche Mode. He is the sort of spiritual centre of the band, if you will, and obviously that's a massive blow not only to the surviving members of the band but to the fandom as well. And as a result, we end up with this very. It's an album reflective of the times, but actually quite a personal album, although probably not intended that way to start with.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. I mean, it begins. I think it begins quite epically. It has a very funeral feel to the initial. The first track, this Cosmos is Mine. The Cosmos is Mine. Very much focused on some of those themes I've just mentioned. Mortality, focusing on one's place in the universe, fighting back against death itself and the external forces that might encroach on our lives.
I just put dark and brooding.
Yeah, dark and brooding. Yeah, fair enough. You know, and there is a moment, obviously, where it builds to a refrain. I won't say chorus. It builds to a repeated refrain.
Also wrote.
Yeah, no
first
chorus.
of many songs without chorus on this podcast.
Exactly. You know, you have this no war, no more, no fear, no here, no rain, no cloud, no pain, no shroud, no final breaths, no senseless deaths. And I think that's the moment that caught me. I was just like, and the album almost pauses. It doesn't. I've been back and listened to it several times. But it almost feels like, bam, right? It's just like, okay, we're here. We're doing this. And obviously, you know, when you think about no war, no more, obviously events since the pandemic, Ukraine, Russia in particular, come to the fore. It hits you very hard that this actually could be the last album. I really do believe this could be it. I mean, in 4 years' time when they go out on the road again and release another album, obviously, I won't be surprised.
Greatest Hits too.
Yeah, exactly. But it does feel like that this could be it.
No, I think that's...
You know,
yeah,
it has that sense of ending, which again sort of sets the mood or the mode. That's quick. The album quickly lifts though with Wagging Tongue, which again could be more of a personal tribute. It is actually a Gore Gahan co-write, and it feels like with the refrain "Watch Another Angel Die," there could be more of a personal touch to that and reference to perhaps Fletch there rather than the sort of more funeral moments of the album.
What was I saying? Sound a bit Yazoo-y to me.
Yeah. I and this is where one criticism I have quite early on of the album is kind of, and believe me, I'm coming from this a place of quite high enjoyment and esteem.
No one would know that everyone's at the podcast. If you're new to the podcast, Pete's quite a big Depeche Mode
fan. Obviously, so it's nitpicks really. I find the sequencing a little bit odd at this point because you get, of course, the hit Ghosts Again, and I feel that's in a weird place tracking wise. I feel like that should either be track 2 or the end of side 1 or the beginning of side 2. It just feels oddly out of place here, but obviously it's a massive song. It's the lead single. It's probably the most mainstream song they've had for a very long time in terms of how it's sort of into the consciousness of your mainstream audience listening to radio and stuff. And again, you know, those themes of death and loss, but juxtaposed against this sort of brighter side of it. So it's not all maudlin, is what I'm also saying. An album called Memento Mori could be quite grim.
No, I agree.
It's actually quite light.
My first build is after dark and brooding, my cosmos is mine.
Yeah,
you're thinking,
oh god,
it's going to be dark and gloomy. Yeah. And then actually, what follows is actually, compared to recent albums, surprisingly poppy.
It is more of a so you have the funeral, but then you have the celebration of life. You know, throughout, I think. Then it bounces. Then it does tick the numbers. You know, you get Martin's song in the middle. You know, the one where we all pop out to the loo.
So I've written. I think this is one of his better ones. To loo songs. Yeah. I actually quite like this song.
Yeah, it is a future Gore classic. I think this one.
I think it's actually a nice song.
Yeah, it's much better there's been equivalent songs on recent albums.
A little bit like,
oh gosh, okay.
Yeah.
No, this one's much better. It's got a funky guitar, catchy chorus. That goes into side 2, Caroline's Monkey. Wonder who Caroline is.
Yeah. What the fuck is it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll jump in there. Jump in. Because obviously, this is one of the 4 tracks, Ghosts being another one, that are co-written with Richard Butler of Psychedelic Furs. What's his problem with Caroline?
Yeah.
Because obviously, Pretty in Pink.
Yeah.
Caroline.
That's Caroline.
Also another song by Psychedelic Furs on a later album called India. Also Caroline.
Right. Okay.
So,
yeah. Yes.
I'm guessing the Caroline came from Richard Butler side of the writing rather than the
Gore side.
Martin Gore side of the writing.
Yeah. So
still a fun song.
It's still a fun song. Again, theme of addiction and other vices dragging you down there. Side 2's interesting because on my initial listens I found side 2 very patchy. and I really did start to lose momentum, particularly in the final third. Actually, but it contains the two Dave Gahan, obviously Dave Gahan with backing band and others co-authoring, but the two Dave Gahan songs, Before We Drown and the album closer, Speak to Me, I actually think are two of the stronger songs on side 2. And as the more I've listened to the album, I've actually put them up in the sort of top tier of songs from the album overall.
I'd agree with Before We Drown. I love the synth riff.
I love that synth riff.
That's really good. Speak to Me.
Yeah,
Speak to Me is fine. It's a solid
but
ballad.
It sort of closes things up. It's kind of, for me, that one is. It's a great closer. It clings onto the darkness and distortion somewhat towards it. So you've got this bookending, I suppose, of the sort of the kind of more grimmer, darker synth sound.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention Ghost. The thing I love about Ghost is that piano riff as well.
No, it's brilliant.
I'm jumping around here, but
absolutely.
Come back. Yeah, back to the end of the album. I do like Speak to Me a lot. And there is also some other stuff. Always You, again, vintage Depeche Mode synths, familiar sound effects scattered across it. Whilst dismissing that sort of section of the album initially, I actually quite like the repeating riff of the chorus and the synths, and it builds. So where am I going with all this rambling? Overall, positioned by some of the critics as their best this century.
Yeah. We had a conversation about this online.
But is it?
Because also, where you draw the line on this, actually, depending on where you draw the line, they've only released one album previous to this.
Well, yeah, the best this decade. Yes, there's only one. If it's the last album, then it's a perfect closer. And this is purely my subjective opinion. I still think Playing the Angel edges it.
I would agree.
In terms of the impact it's had on my life and probably other people.
Yeah.
It's definitely up there though, and you've got subsequent to Playing the Angel, you've got Sounds of the Universe, which again I think has grown in time. But then you've got the albums that followed that are a bit muddy and a bit murky. And as I was joking with you earlier, I can never remember the name of Delta Machine. There it is again, Delta Machine. I'll just keep saying it until I hammer it into my brain that was the album before the album.
Yeah, but that's still a better album than Spirits.
Yeah, and Spirits is very... So yes, in terms of, is this a return to... No, it's not return to form, is it? They've never really lost form, but is this their best album for a long time? Yes. Is it their best album this 21st century? Jury's out.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But it is a great album from them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Obviously, I don't have much to add, because as you say, it's actually, maybe we should do this in a few other things. Just jump in at the time. It's probably easier. But we haven't mentioned. For me, one of the things I liked about this record is there's a handful of tracks that go back to, mainly from the drum beat, that go back to kind of like 80s DM.
Yeah.
So you've got People Are Good, and my favourite singer, which is probably my favourite singer, which is probably my favourite song on the album, actually.
Yeah. People Are Good.
Yeah.
Really?
No. Favourite singer.
Favourite singer.
Yeah.
Right.
But they've got literally the classic 80s kind of.
Okay. Yeah. Favourite Stranger.
Yeah. Favourite Stranger.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
Also had elements of kind of early 80s Ultravox going on as well.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because they're around at the same time. What I think was particularly funny though is Richard Butler, who mentioned Psychedelic Furs, wrote several of the songs, but it is weird that I think it is don't think it had anything to do with People Are Good, and yet People Are Good sounds more like Psychedelic Furs than any other song on the album, and he didn't have anything to do with it. But you go,
yeah,
one of those things. Also, bizarrely, I had on People Are Good and Catalyzed Monkey. There were moments in both songs where actually suddenly I had Glenn Gregory of Heaven 17 singing.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Just because they just kind of just...
Yeah.
there were moments of both those songs where the delivery just kind of fell into that kind of thing. I don't mean that as a bad way. I think it was like, but it was just like weird. It's like, oh, what? That's what that. And I've had that a few times on the podcast, but we'll get to that. But not Glenn Gregory, but just
for that thing sort of
having strange things come in. But I agree with you. I think Playing the Angel probably still edges it, but then that maybe just because of time and it's actually had the thing. But I think this is definitely, as a collection of songs, the strongest thing they've put out since then. It actually hangs together.
It hangs together well. Despite my
Well.
nitpick,
Yeah,
it does. Hang together well.
As an album.
It hangs together very well. And as I say, if this was a career closer, it'd be perfect. I doubt it. I'm sure they'll come back for like the final tour and the final tour and what have you. But it's a very and hats off also to the producer James Ford. This is his second album. He did Spirit. Yes. Do you know what he's up to next?
No.
His next project, also a great duo that are still selling innovatively and commercially, who originated in the 80s.
No idea.
No idea. Well, they'll be back later this year.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad. Moving on. Moving on to Baby Metal and the other one. Yeah. Fourth studio album from Baby Metal. We last reviewed them on podcast 4, 2014. With their debut album, a record I like much more than you, because you had trouble seeing past the J-pop mix metal gimmick. I have to say that subsequent releases didn't really trouble me at all, and when they announced back in 2021 that it might be the end of the band, I was not exactly bereft, should we say. But anyway, they're back, and to be honest, actually, based on this record, I am actually glad they are. Yeah. It has to be said, I think the opening 3 tracks of this record are brilliant and justify the existence of the entire album on their own. It's like, I put this on, it's like, this thing, and then it's like, I think, okay, this works actually. Yeah, I like this. And I can also immediately kind of think, as a 3-track opener for a live gig, I was thinking, this would work.
It would, wouldn't it? Yeah.
You're thinking, this would work, and I'd be going, okay, I'm happy here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bring on the rest of the gig. Yeah. Kick-ass metal, riffs, loudness, blah, 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 blah. If I don't have one of the opening tracks, the opening tracks are Metal Kingdom, Divine Attack, and Mirror Mirror. If I was picking one, I'd have Divine Attack, which is the middle one, which I think is, for me, the outstanding track on the album.
I love the bass there.
Yeah. But even outside of this, I think the songwriting and the experimentation makes this the best album they've released, because songwriting's gone up, and the experimentation for the experimentation's sake of kind of going, we'll do some weird shit over here because that's been kind of toned down, and because of that, I think it's a much more focused record than certainly the first album, and certainly didn't listen to the third album, but the second album was again similar. So you've got bits of musically you're thinking Bring Me the Horizon, Paramore, Funeral for a Friend, Slipknot, stuff like that, produced by the band that are behind the band, who are the Cami band, who are just proper metal band. It's just,
it's a proper band,
really good. So I really love the Arabian influence and the guitars of Metabolism. Love the sax solo on the final track The Legend. Love the stops. I love any record that kind of and starts again on is it Maya? Say my name. Monochrome sounds exactly as I'd imagine Little Mix if they went metal.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like just. Yeah. And I have to say, until now, I kind of thought, do I need really baby metal in my life? But I said, no. But actually, this is a really, really solid rock record.
Yeah.
Really solid rock record. And if you've shied away from baby metal till now, and you're just waiting till tomorrow, which is hours away for the new Metallica album to come out, This is good way to kind of build up to that. I think this is definitely the best album they've done, and actually a pretty good metal record. Yeah,
it is
fun.
It is a fun record. I loved the 90s synths of Time Wave.
Yeah.
I love all the metal, but I do like it when it went in those sort of tangents. I mean, and Metalism, which you mentioned already, it's the one that sounds like a club classic.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, you know, and Light and Darkness wouldn't be out of place in like a Euro pop show or something, you know.
Absolutely not. No.
It's just that sort of pop that, you know, that you do get. It was really fun. So yeah, no, I agree with all that. It's obviously a challenging record on first listen because it is in Japanese.
with some
English.
Japa English, yes.
Japa English, yes. So it can be quite challenging to begin with lyrically, but actually there's enough there to keep you entertained. It's a really good. It's a good album.
Yeah, It's loud.
It's loud and it's fun. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, moving back to the UK and Black Country New Road, live from Bush Hall. Third album for the band.
Yeah.
We last reviewed them on podcast 2, 2021 for their debut the first time. One of the first of the talk art rock albums that we covered.
Thing
for a period. Obviously, Sunglasses was the big hit off that album. Now, normally we wouldn't do a live album on the podcast.
No, but first, I think
it is.
Yeah.
And the only reason we're doing it is because this was a live album of all new material. Because lead vocalist and guitarist Isaac Wood decided he was going to retire from the band a year ago through various reasons, mostly mental health issues.
Right.
And the band kind of sat down, the six members of the band sat down and kind of go, what we're going to do? And thought, you know what, fuck it, let's carry on. Let's all bring some songs together and let's do some stuff. And then we'll get out on tour and we'll kind of go, basically just pitch it and kind of go, okay, not doing any of the hits, we're just doing some new shit, come along. And that's what happened. And the intention at the time wasn't necessarily to release an album off the back of it, but obviously they recorded it.
Yeah.
They've released it. Are we happy they released it?
I'm happy. It's very unusual because we don't do live albums.
No, I think this genuinely is the first live album.
The first time we've ever done a live album. So trying to sort of compare sort of the quality of a live recording is obviously never quite the same.
Yeah.
But it's quite good quality in terms of this album. It's a very good recording. I think it's a solid album, a solid effort. It's, as you say, that sort of post-punk folk indie, where's it going to land next? You know. Lyrically and musically at times, very reminiscent of Arcade Fire. Actually, I second half of the album more so than the first. I was getting quite sort of the big operatic sweeping sort of, you know.
Actually,
Arcade Fire
I haven't really thought about that. But actually, that's actually
not everywhere. Yeah. Not everywhere. And then I was trying to remember the name of a few of the spoken word albums that we've. I mean, obviously last year's.
Yeah, I should have written them down.
You should have. I should have do.
The Woman.
Yeah. Oh yes. Dry Cleaning.
Dry Cleaning. Yes.
Dry Cleaning. Oh, she's very similar vocally. Yard Sale.
Yard Stick.
Yard Stick. Oh my goodness. Fucking hell.
Yard Act.
Yard Act. Talk about running a podcast that people listen to. We can't even remember the name of the top bands that we reviewed last year. Yeah. You know.
And even Fontaine's decent, particularly first album.
Well, no,
first album.
And I was going to build up to.
Oh, sorry.
Fontaines.
Okay. Sorry, Pete's just showed me something on his notes on his phone. Yes.
Yes, it does actually say Fontaines. There you go, and it's Fontaines DC.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was definitely getting that vibe as well. So yeah, it's all right. I like this.
Yes,
I haven't got much more to say though.
Yeah. So I thought, and I'm going to be totally honest about this, and basically apologising to the band almost because I felt
it's good though.
Well, I'm about to say I felt this album for me suffered by being in this podcast, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. There's a few albums that we'll come into that do suffer.
But so because I kind of struggled with it a bit.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't saying I didn't like it, but it was like my brain wasn't in the mood for the kind of sub-pulp experimental English chamber pop type thing. Yeah. Which not said. As I said, I mean, Up Song. Start of the album I really liked. So Up Song is really great. The Boy, equally great slice of kind of folk whimsy. Then you got Across the Pond Friend, which I really, really liked.
Yeah.
But then I kind of just fell out of it for a while and just couldn't connect back in. But I did, and this is genuinely, I do think this album probably deserves me listening to it properly after said podcast, not immediately obviously, because I think it's probably better than I currently think it is.
Yeah.
So I am genuinely going to give it some time after the podcast, and because there's enough at the start of it that I think actually just cut off, do things. And ironically, I'm about to say about something on Lana Del Ray album about how you should, cut off everything else and listen to it, which I didn't do with it. But so it's to be reviewed.
To be reviewed further. Wow. Okay.
9th album from Lana Del Ray next. Did you know that? Yeah, I know. Did you know there's a tunnel under the Ocean Boulevard? Last reviewed, podcast 7, 2017, for a 5th album, which was Lust for Life. We have reviewed 2 of our albums. Lust for Life was we reviewed a 3rd album, which was Ultraviolet.
Yes, Ultraviolet.
Yeah.
Have we missed 4 albums in 5 years?
We have, yes.
Wow.
So this draws on gospel, folk, a trademark retro Americana.
Yeah.
And then manages to drop a bit of hip hop in it, just to kind of like
off.
just to like fuck with your brain in the middle of the album. Described as dirge by my other half. But I'm going to defend her at the thing because it is.
Are you defending Lana or your other half?
It is mostly a record of one pace.
Yeah.
And songs without choruses.
Yes, it's songs without choruses again. Yeah.
That kind of flow over you.
Yeah.
And definitely, and this is the thing which I feel guilty about the last album, because I'm about to say, it's one where you should basically get rid of all the sounds and just sit and listen and listen to the album without any, not on your headphones, you're walking along, on your train or that. It's like, no, in a room,
you need to
put the music on, sit down, listen to it, kind of record.
Agreed.
And we have this occasionally. So no other distractions, because otherwise you're just going to go, and that's what I feel about this album. And if you do that, I think, like Del Rey's previous albums, you kind of go, oh, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
And there's that ability to entice and entrance you, and kind of go, oh, yes, I like this. This is good. Whether this is good over 16 tracks and almost an hour and a half of music, perhaps less so.
Yeah.
Should we say? However, when it works, and it does work, it's quite lovely.
Yes.
First third especially, I think, worked really
definitely.
well. Very well. Yeah.
Very well.
Starts off with that really kind of uplifting kind of a cappella vocals at the start of the Grants.
Yeah.
It's not about John Grant or Cary Grant, but it's about her family. And it's just you're thinking, oh, this is really lovely, and it kind of that almost sets the stall for the album, because again, it's a bit meandering, it's a bit kind of chorusless, but actually it's just like, I quite like this song. And then on that first half of the album, you've got the title track, this next one, which I think is lovely, just really love the song.
Yeah, agreed.
And the John Baptiste collab, Candy Necklace, is one of the kind of poppier moments. It's one of the ones that you go, you could release this as a single and people actually buy it kind of thing, as opposed to the kind of like, okay, I need to be washed over. Margaret actually towards the end of the album actually fits that as well. I really love Grandfather Please Stand on the Shoulders of My Father whilst in deep sea fishing, which is a really actually lovely song, which has a Ryopsy piano track flow as the main thing.
Again, but you'll see from my notes, I actually took the effort to write down the whole title.
Yeah. But A&W is the album's longest and most rewarding track for me. It's like, it's the best, it's the most interesting. It starts off as, imagine your ideal Lana Del Ray song, and that's what it is for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it decides to become a hip-hop song.
Yes, midway through.
For the last 3 minutes. It's like, brilliant. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But it kind of works.
It does.
And it's like, yeah, okay, I like this. Examples of things not working, Fingertips, which is I mean, one of the most wordy things I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do anything.
I on A&W, I mean, I loved the sort of slightly distorted piano riff you get at the beginning.
Yes.
And speaking of artists that I like, because I've done that a lot this podcast, definitely get the Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross vibe.
Actually,
there.
Yeah.
And that's before the segue then into part 2, which is the hip hop section you already referred to. I do think it's nice and dark. It's a sweeping soulful album, really, isn't it? It washes, as you keep saying, it washes over you.
But it's long.
But I didn't struggle with the length on this one. It is long, but actually,
quote unquote.
but I did not struggle with that length. It is fine. I actually find it's fine. It's what you expect. It's always troubling and dark in its lyrics, even if it's sort of calming in its musicality.
Yeah.
You know. I agree with you. The first third is definitely the more dramatic and orchestral and more sweeping and more engaging. Then there's a middle third which is sort of quiet and a bit more acoustic and a bit more sort of plodding along, and then it uplifts again in that final third with the, you know.
Yeah, but it's almost like the final third though is the extras DVD.
The extras that was added on.
Yeah. No, shouldn't this be the kind of bit we add on to the record rather than...
Well, it's more akin to her brand of adult, darker pop music, you know, with tracks like Peppers and Taco Truck right at the end there as well.
That's a Taco Truck I like, because obviously that features Venice Bitch from the first album. It kind of interpolates.
Yeah, so it does feel like a callback, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. It's great. Great album. But you do need to give it time.
Yeah. Too much time.
Too much time for you.
Yes. An hour and a half's time. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
2 albums to go. Second to last. The 9th studio album from our podcast favourites, The Whole Steady.
Yay!
Last reviewed on podcast 221 for Open Door Policy.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, are we still in love with The Whole Steady?
Yes. I like this album a lot. For me, it feels like a very cohesive, well hung together album. Well hung.
You're doing all the jokes now.
I am doing all the jokes now. It's a band that feels very comfortable in its 20-year sort of.
Yeah.
Throughout the album, there are nods to other, perhaps more famous. It sounds like an album title in itself. Nods to other more famous songs. And actually, I'm fine with that. I think the opening track sets the Grand Junction sets the tone. Sideways Skull is up there with their classic stories of drunken rock band drunkenness, and other substances might be involved. I really liked the lead single, actually, which they did debut when we went to see them about a month or so ago. Sixers. I think they introduced it at their recent London gig as a as a romance between two millennial bankers or something. It's quite amusing. And it has that feel to it, that sort of story told from third person. I think the first half definitely zips along at a pace.
Yes, I agree with that.
The second half slows down, is more considered, exemplified by distortions of faith. And is it Perfido? Perfido? Perdido.
You say Perdido, I say Perdido.
Oh, okay. And then in their classic fashion, because what always amazes me about them is they end their gigs, their live performances so well, and yet their albums just seem to stop. And they do it again here. With the last track. It's just like, da-da-da. Oh, it's done. It's finished.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
with actually the quite amusing flyover halftime,
Yeah, lots of American sports in the album.
Yes, a lot of American sport references. I mean Sixers. I was on a. I always laugh, and me and my other half always laugh at the whole LeBron James. Any reference to LeBron James gets us, because we were in the US at the time he was making his very controversial move away from Cleveland.
Yes,
which kind of catapulted him to a certain level of fame. So any mention of him in any culture always makes us smile, and probably most British people won't get that. Yeah, but yeah.
I'm describing this as the Billy Joel album.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Didn't hit me till the second time I listened to the opening Grand Junction, which is one of my favourite tracks on the album.
Yeah.
Well, I come with that. It's a Piano Man, isn't it? With Billy Joel. on that bit in the verse, you're thinking, that's pure Piano Man. But then, once I heard that, I listened to the rest of the album, I'm thinking, I can hear bits of Billy Joel in the Sixers, and I can and in Distortions of Faith as well.
Yeah.
And this is, I should say here, this is not a criticism.
No.
And this is 70s Billy Joel thinking, this is for who the Homesteady are and the kind of music they play. Why wouldn't Billy Joel be kind of in that kind of mix? It's like, it hadn't occurred to me before that might even be a thing. Like I said, I think you're right. I think it's mainly a mix of classic Homesteady stuff. So as you said, Sixers, Sideways Skull, pretty dope. Understudies, which I really love. I think that's just prime the Homesteady. But there's a little bit of kind of like stretching out and kind of going, let's just make Chris a bit. So Carlos is crying. Yeah. Or Rat Trap, as I call it. Yeah. Has a bit of a new sound and a vibe that's not really kind of heard before. And it's kind of like, quite like that, So the chorus, the chorus is very Homesteady, but as a chorus, but the verse is not what we've heard before. Love the horns on the Bird Watchers.
Yes, I love the
both
horns.
in the horns and the end, and also the horns at the end. It's just
love the horns.
Great.
It's the Hornsteady. Is it the Hornsteady? Is it the Hornsteady?
I have no idea. I don't know the thing. Only track that made me kind of go is City 11. Didn't really.
No,
that was just
I didn't think of that at all. Yeah,
bit kind of
passed me by that one.
So is it the best Homesteady album? No.
No.
Is it a really good Homesteady album? Yes.
Yes.
And on to the final album of the podcast. So Boygenius, the record, debut album from Boygenius. Now, as we know, the rock law says if you're any musical artist and you get together with a musical artist to form a band or a side project, it must be called supergroup.
Yes.
Because, it doesn't matter if it's super or not. It's just it's the
law. Supergroup.
It's the law.
It's the law.
So this is Boygenius are an indie rock supergroup. Formed in 2018 by Julian Baker, Phoebe Bridgers and Lucy Dacus. And we've reviewed each of these artists previously on the podcast. We reviewed Julian Baker's Little Oblivions on podcast 3, 2021. Phoebe Bridges' The Punisher on podcast 7, 2020. And Lucy Dacus's Historian back on podcast 2, 2018. Woo! So, these ladies are well known to us. The question is whether their combined merits actually merit the tag supergroup, which for me is yes. This is actually what I want from an album this type. It's better than some of its parts. I like each of these artists.
Yeah.
I like the albums we've reviewed. Whilst I think all the albums we've reviewed, all the 3 albums I mentioned, we've liked without loving. So we're all going, this is really good. I want to hear more of this person.
Yeah.
And for me, this album, the kind of pooling of the talent just works. It feels like an album. It feels like they're a band as well, which is amazing because there are 3 distinct artists coming in. I mean, vocally, they're not too dissimilar, I suppose. There is a similarity to a certain extent in their vocal styles, but there's enough difference that musically it goes from Belly Breeders type stuff of $20, Satanist, Anti-Curse to kind of